I want you to picture this, because I promise you probably haven't lived it. 1 second, I'm watching my 17-year-old daughter scoop horse manure for $5 an hour. The next, a woman in spotless breeches is shrieking that she wants to strip search my kid over a Rolex. Yeah, that's how my Saturday started. You think you've had a rough week? Try being accused of grand larceny before noon, with your dad hiding in the shade on a horse, pretending he's just out for a ride. Now, you might be thinking, come on, it can't be that bad. Let me just say, people like Mrs. Sterling, her fences cost more than my first pickup, don't ask for things. They demand. She comes stomping out of her air-conditioned clubhouse, high heels clacking, not a speck of dust on her anywhere. I'm sitting there under an oak tree, sweating through my old work shirt, trying not to get involved. Maya begged me, Dad, let me handle this on my own. So I'm biting my tongue, counting the seconds. And then I hear it. Search her things. Now, my daughter, 5'0", standing there with a shovel, looks up and says, no, just one word, but it was enough. You ever see someone get hit by a word? Mrs. Sterling's face goes red, then white, then this color that probably has no name. She can't believe the help just told her no. Next thing I know, she's grabbing her phone, punching in 911 with her thumb shaking. So bad, she almost drops it. And she's looking at Maya like she's a criminal mastermind, not a kid who spends her summer covered in dirt to save for a used car. Let me tell you, I've been around the block. I've seen what happens when people like Mrs. Sterling get it in their heads that the world runs on their schedule, on their rules. So I nudge my quarter horse, Whiskey, out from under the tree. We cross the property line, the side with honest red clay, not the spray green grass, and I watch the temperature drop about 15 degrees in the shade of the drama she's brewing. Here's the thing about working people. We don't expect the world to be fair, but we damn sure expect it to be honest. Maya's shaking, but she stands her ground. She remembers what I taught her. Your rights matter, even when you're scared. Maybe especially then. Mrs. Sterling, though, she's just getting started. She lunges at Maya, shrieking about her rules and her property. And that's when I swing down from Whiskey, boots hitting the concrete with a sound that turns every head in the place. You ever hear silence drop like a hammer? That's what happened. Suddenly I'm the show, not just a dad, not just a cowboy with muddy boots. I flick my toothpick on her perfect floor and ask, is there a problem here? Not angry, not loud, just enough to remind her that respect isn't a one-way street. But Mrs. Sterling's not looking for respect. She's looking for a scalp. Get that horse out of here and take your little thief with you. Now, I'll admit, there's a part of me that wanted to swing back up on Whiskey and just ride out. Let them stew in their own drama. But I saw Maya's hands, knuckles white on the shovel, eyes shining with tears she wouldn't let fall. And I remembered every time someone tried to make me small when I was her age. Sterling dials 911. She puts on the performance of her life. Oscar-worthy, really, wailing that she's under attack, that there's a dangerous man with a gun. Never mind that the only thing on my belt is a pocket knife and the badge tucked into my saddlebag, right where she can't see it. She screams about threats, about being trapped. The crowd starts circling, phones out, hungry for a show. I can practically feel them writing the headlines already. Cowboy dad and daughter terrorize equestrian elite. That's the thing about a good lie. It spreads fast, especially when there's money behind it. Officer Miller and his partner Davis roll up 5 minutes later, sirens screaming, tires squealing like it's the Indy 500. Miller's all puffed up, hand on his holster, ready to save the day. And of course, he buys every word Sterling's selling. You ever try to reason with someone who's already decided you're the villain? It's like talking to a wall that can call for backup. Miller barks at me to get off the horse, starts talking about terroristic threats and trespassing. Never mind that I'm standing on a public easement, protecting my kid from an illegal search. I try to talk him down, mention the law, mention consent, minors' rights. He doesn't hear a word. Sterling keeps the show going, weeping and pointing, demanding they search Maya in private. Davis, now here's where the twist comes in. He looks like he wants to say something. There's this flicker in his eyes, like maybe he actually gets it. But Miller's running the show, and in the world of uniforms and shiny boots, hierarchy wins. Miller threatens me with a taser, which, let me tell you, is a real bad idea around a 1,200-pound horse. Maya screams, steps forward, desperate to keep me from getting hurt. That's when I realize I have to take the fall. I'll let Miller cuff me, rough and tight, not because I can't fight it, but because sometimes you have to let a fool dig his own grave. He thinks he's won. Sterling struts over, crop in hand, poking me like I'm cattle. She whispers, I always win. And, for a second, she really believes it. She announces she's taking Maya for that search, since the scene is secure. That's when I stop playing the quiet dad. I use the voice I learned in 2 decades of law enforcement, the voice that turns chaos into order. Officer Davis, step away from your partner. The whole place freezes. Sterling hesitates, hand inches from Maya's arm. Davis blinks, finally seeing me, not just a dirty cowboy, but someone with authority. I tell him to open my saddlebag. He does, hands shaking, and pulls out my sheriff's windbreaker, badge gleaming in the sunlight. The silence is so thick you could cut it. Davis whispers, Oh my God, Miller, you arrested the sheriff. Sterling shrieks it's fake, but Davis knows better. He reads the badge, checks the ID. Miller stands there, taser hanging uselessly, color draining from his face. That's when my deputies arrive, rail backup, county men blocking the exits, telling the city cops to stand down. I get uncuffed. I don't thank anybody. I just pin the badge to my filthy shirt, let the gold star glint in front of the whole room. I look at Sterling, who's suddenly so small, hiding behind the crowd that used to hang on her every word. She tries to point fingers, tries to rally the mob, but now nobody's buying what she's selling. I tell her, calm as you please, you wanted the law. Here I am. Davis cuffs Miller, hands shaking but sure. Miller protests, sputtering about mistakes, but nobody listens. My deputies pull Sterling aside. Search her office. Guess what they find? That Rolex hidden in her own drawer. She staged the whole thing, tried to break a teenage girl just to prove she could. Driving home with Maya, the sun setting and whiskey-munching hay in the trailer, it hits me. Sometimes you have to let yourself get dragged through the mud, literally and figuratively, just to pull the weeds out by the roots. I tell Maya, if I'd flashed my badge at the start, they'd have apologized and gone right back to doing it to someone else. This way, they'll never forget. She asks, did it have to be so hard? And I say, sometimes to teach a lesson, you have to let the bad guys think they're winning. Otherwise, they just hide it better next time. Here's what stuck with me, and maybe it'll stick with you too. Power isn't about shouting the loudest or swinging the biggest stick. It's about knowing when to stand your ground and when to let a fool hang himself with his own rope. Justice doesn't always look like a courtroom or a badge. Sometimes it looks like a dirty work shirt and a quiet no from someone who refuses to be trampled. I watched Sterling get marched out in handcuffs, sobbing. Her reign over the stable finally ended. I watched Officer Miller, who let a badge become a weapon for the wrong side, get stripped of his gear and his illusions. The crowd watched too, silent now, finally seeing that money can buy a lot but not the truth. Not today. So let me ask you this. Where do you draw the line between standing up for yourself and letting someone else crash and burn on their own arrogance? Have you ever had to let things go further than you wanted, just to show the world what's really going on? Or maybe you've been the one who needed a lesson in humility. I'd love to hear your story. Where's the line for you? And what would you have done if you were in my boots? Drop your thoughts below, argue with me, share your stories. Because honestly, that's how we keep each other honest. And maybe, just maybe, remind folks like Mrs. Sterling that out here, the law wears work boots, and it remembers who stood up when it mattered.
Cảm ơn tất cả các bạn đã xem video.